we've gone through the register application from the text in our PowerPoint, but seeing it live on a browser is a little bit better as far as understanding what goes into it and how it reflects our scripting for the DOM lectures and our content. So here we've got our form, and I can easily click register, and you'd see it has all of our messages in order, in an unordered list. Now if I inspect that element, like so, you'll see that it has UL class messages, LI, 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 LI. Now when we began this chapter, one of our goals was to show that even though we're appending children and creating text nodes, we wanted to be able to see that in our Chrome console, to see that it's actually creating the markup. So this whole section is created dynamically, on the fly, as validation messages for this form. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the code. So we have the confirm, which is the form action of the registration. So I'm going to go ahead and do just at blah, 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 like that. Now you got to make sure it's perfect here. 555-1212. Select country, email, I accept, register. And this is the confirm. You'll see that it has confirm.html, and it's got the query string. So let's get back to the code. Now we can look at our HTML. Our HTML, as you can see, contains no section for error messaging right here. There's a body tag, and then we go right to the main tag, which contains our entire form. Okay? We've been over this form in the lecture, but just to reiterate, we have input type, email address. And in the lecture, I mentioned how this should be email. And this should be TEL, because those are the new HTML5 data types that will pull up the appropriate keyboard. If the browser the person's using doesn't honor that, then it will gladly, gracefully degrade into just input type text. But the beauty of this is, because I have HTML email, if I have everything selected here, and I do this, it says, please enter an email address. But if I do this, and I click register, the form actually still submits without validating that email. So if you have a traditional form submission, like input type submit at the bottom, what would happen, and I'll go ahead and do that just so you can see it, is then the email would trigger off an issue. So watch, when I do this, and I do this, and I do this, and I do register, okay, there's an email address there, but now when I do this, actually I think I just need to refresh. So we're going to go ahead and refresh this and make sure that it's, I don't want to get off topic, I want to get to the point. Yeah, there it is, submit. So we do this, and you see it has an issue because it runs through the form. So what I'm saying is that we still need the input type email with its validation properties, because it's going to have, here, let's add the required here. It's going to be particular to that email. It needs to be the format of an email. So if I go back and we run this like so, and I run my phone, and I run this, and I run this, and I hit register, the form itself should not be submitting, because the form action is what would make it run. So keep it at email and pull up the appropriate keyboard, and you'll be happy with the results. So going back to our HTML, we still have the span, etc. But let's go to the register. Now, use strict is you can remove this after it goes live. This will keep you honest. It'll keep only the things that are need to be, the variables that need to be used. It'll warn you of certain things like, and there's an article I gave out last week that shows what strict means and what it needs. But we have our selector here, so we can utilize the clever access like this. So what we're doing here is displaying the error message. We have three functions. One is display errors. One is process entries, if we're lucky enough to get that far. And then we've got reset form. So this is what starts it all. Add event listener, DOM content loaded. Then we'll add event listeners for the register button, the reset form button, and of course we'll focus our cursor in the first text field, which is the email address. So next thing to do is to focus on processing entries. So what we'll do is we'll grab each of the elements. We need to check the value of email, phone, and country, and then we need to see that the checkbox has a term. So we'll create an array of error messages, and if email value is equal to empty, we'll grab will basically push this onto the array of messages. We know this because we're creating an index that's one more than the total, the last element of the array. So let's say we have an array of 3. Well, that would be index of 2. And so what we're doing is this would be equal to 3, and so we're saying the fourth element, which is the third index, would be equal to this. So throughout these, we're basically array pushing onto that array. So messages would be there. Now you can also do this with a string, but I like it as an array because then we can loop around that array when we want to display it. So if the length is 0, that means we're good to go. We're going to target that first form on the page and hit submit. Now, as mentioned in the lecture, if another form got placed prior to this, it would have that form submit instead of this one. Otherwise, we're going to display our error messages. So here are the error messages, and what we're going to be doing is creating a new UL, and we're going to add the class messages to it. Then we'll loop around our array of messages, and on each turn of that loop, we'll create a new LI element, and then a new text element. And then what we'll do is we'll append the text to the LI, and then we'll append the LI to the UL. So this is where we can place a UL unless there's one already there, in which case we'll replace it. So I have node equals the first UL element. If it happens to be null, that means there's no UL there. Let's get the form, and then we'll insert the UL before the form. This is the new, this is the existing. So all of these node methods take a new and they take an existing. So that's if there is no UL. Otherwise, if there is a UL, the else will find the parent node of the node, which is UL, and we'll replace its child with that new node, with that new UL. So this is about our displaying our error messages, and the messages themselves are these right here. So lastly, we have our reset form, which is applied the click listener for the reset form button. And in that case, we'll just reset. We'll remove the UL entirely and all of its child contents, which includes LI and text nodes, and then we'll focus the cursor on the email address. So once again, we go back, and when we run this, if we do this, we get that, right? So you see how this is required? It says must include an @ symbol in the email address. So once you go here and click that and that, then you're good. So this right here, mobile phone, USA, let's go ahead and click register, and we see that it moves forward. It says, though, at the end that it did not accept, so the server side would be, there we go. So the next step that I want to confront is to basically, when you validate this week's homework, you're going to return false on a form submission. It's going to be a little bit different than this because this has JavaScript submitting the form. We'll get to this when I explain the homework, but that is a very important difference between our homework this week and this. The rest is all very straightforward.